Buried beneath China's sacred mountains are pyramids no one's allowed to explore. A tomb filled with mercury rivers remains sealed by imperial decree for over 2,000 years. And in the remote highlands, stone discs were discovered, engraved with messages some say came from the stars. Why is science silent on these mysteries? And what secrets still lie hidden beneath the ancient soil of China? Welcome to this episode. Let's begin. The silent giants of Xi'an, China's forgotten pyramids. Beneath the sprawling plains near Xi'an, China's ancient heartland, lies a secret so massive it can be seen from space. And yet, on the ground, it is cloaked in silence, overgrown with forests, and ignored by official narratives. These are the so-called Pyramids of Xi'an, a series of monumental earth mounds whose scale and mystery rival those of Giza, but whose origins remain far more elusive. Our story begins not with an archaeological dig or a scholarly paper, but with a World War II pilot flying a reconnaissance mission over central China. As he soared above the misty landscape, something enormous and geometrically impossible caught his eye. A pristine white pyramid rising from the earth like a memory of something older than civilization itself. Upon returning to his base, he reported what he had seen. But his account, like the pyramid, vanished into the silence of bureaucracy and time. Today, satellite imagery confirms the existence of over 100 such structures in the Shaanxi province, many buried under thick vegetation. The largest among them, the so-called White Pyramid of Xi'an, is estimated by some researchers to be over 300 meters tall, dwarfing even the Great Pyramid of Giza. And yet, these structures are officially referred to as mausoleums of Han and Tang emperors, despite their enigmatic alignment, massive scale, and construction techniques that defy explanation. Why have these ancient monuments been so quietly dismissed? Why is access to many of these sites restricted, with no significant excavation efforts underway? To understand, we must travel back in time, not just to the Qin and Han dynasties, but perhaps even further to a forgotten chapter of human history, a forbidden landscape. The plains around Xi'an are dotted with these pyramid-like mounds, some rising sharply, others flattened by centuries of erosion. What makes them different from ordinary burial mounds is not just their size, but their layout. Some researchers, both Chinese and international, have noted that several of these pyramids appear to be aligned with celestial bodies, particularly the constellation Orion. Others form geometric patterns that suggest a mathematical sophistication not commonly associated with early dynastic China. The most mysterious among them, the White Pyramid allegedly spotted by the US pilot, remains unverified in official Chinese records. Some argue it was a trick of the light or a misinterpretation of the landscape. Others claim it has been deliberately concealed, overgrown with trees to make it vanish from aerial view. Intriguingly, many of the pyramids are planted with dense forests of pine, a measure believed by some to be intentional, a way of ensuring the sites remain camouflaged. Chinese archaeologists have, in some cases, labeled these structures as tombs of emperors. But unlike Egypt's pyramids, there are no grand inscriptions, no passageways filled with treasure, and in many cases, no open excavations. Why? Because a law passed by the Chinese government prohibits the opening of any imperial tomb that is not in danger of immediate destruction. This means that some of the most significant sites in Chinese history may never be studied in full. Some wonder if the silence is due to national pride, a wish to avoid disturbing the resting places of emperors. Others suspect a deeper mystery, that these pyramids were built by a people or a civilization that predates the dynasties we know. Legends of the Sky People. Ancient Chinese texts speak of the Son of Heaven, of emperors who descended from the stars, and of heavenly dragons who imparted wisdom to early humanity. While these accounts have long been interpreted as myth, some alternative historians have dared to suggest a different reading. Could the Xi'an pyramids be markers of a time when early humans were in contact with beings more advanced than we can imagine? The orientation of certain pyramids to the solstices, the precision of their layouts, and the sheer scale of their construction challenged the mainstream timeline of human capability. Who were the builders? What tools did they use? How were these enormous mounds constructed without the wheel or iron tools, which were not widely available during the early dynastic periods? These questions are rarely addressed in academic circles. To do so would be to open the door to uncomfortable possibilities. That human history is far older and far more complex than we have been taught. Buried secrets and river myths. Many of the Xi'an pyramids are linked by ancient roads that no longer appear on modern maps. These dragon lines, as some call them, stretch across Shaanxi province like ley lines, connecting one mound to another in a vast network. What purpose did this serve? Was it ceremonial, territorial, or could it be that these were part of an energy grid, similar to the theories surrounding the Pyramids of Giza? One of the most intriguing tales comes not from the pyramids themselves but from the surrounding region. According to a local legend, deep beneath one of the largest mounds flows a subterranean river made of mercury. This is not merely myth. When the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang was scanned using modern technology, it revealed high levels of mercury contamination in the soil around the unexcavated central chamber. Could this be evidence that the ancient Chinese were aware of mercury's preservative and symbolic properties? Or was the Mercury River something more? Some fringe theories suggest that such chambers were designed not just for burial but for transformation, a kind of alchemical stasis, preserving not only the body but perhaps the consciousness of the entombed. Why the silence? Despite the global fascination with ancient pyramids, China's silent giants remain largely ignored. Tourists are not encouraged to visit. Signs are minimal. There are no active digs that seek to truly uncover what lies beneath. Some believe this is due to cultural reverence, a refusal to disturb the dead. But others suggest that what lies beneath may not fit the official story. What if these mounds are older than dynastic China? What if they are remnants of an unknown civilization lost to history? One that possessed knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and construction that rival our own. If true, it would force a complete rethinking of not only Chinese history, but of human history as a whole. A whisper from the past. As the sun sets over the plains of Xi'an, shadows stretch across the landscape, and the forested pyramids cast long silhouettes over forgotten earth. The air grows still. Birds avoid the tree lines, and in the silence, if you listen closely, you can almost hear a whisper rising from the soil. A whisper of forgotten builders. A whisper of stories untold. A whisper of giants who once walked this land, and who left behind monuments that pierce both the sky and our understanding of the past. China's pyramids are not just earthen mounds. They are questions, waiting patiently beneath moss and pine. And until someone dares to truly ask those questions, their secrets will remain buried in silence. Next, the Dropa Stones, star visitors or ancient hoax. Imagine this, high in the misty, desolate mountains of the Bayan Har Range, a far-flung stretch of the eastern Himalayas bordering Tibet. A group of Chinese archaeologists embarked on a routine expedition in 1938. They expected to find signs of ancient nomadic tribes, perhaps scattered relics from a forgotten culture. But what they uncovered deep within a series of interlocking caves would go on to become one of the most enduring and mysterious tales in the world of unexplained archaeology. Inside these caves, later named the Bayan Caves, the team discovered neatly arranged rows of stone discs. Hundreds of them. At first glance, they resembled ancient phonograph records, flat and round, each about 9 inches in diameter, with a perfectly round hole in the center and a curious spiral groove etched across their surface. But what truly set them apart wasn't just their shape. It was what was inscribed in those spirals. The grooves, under closer examination, weren't decorative. They were finely carved tiny hieroglyphs, so small that a magnifying glass was required to even begin reading them. And even then, they seemed to defy understanding. The strange writing didn't match any known language or script, yet it clearly wasn't random. It seemed intentional, purposeful, as though the stones had a message, if only we could decipher it. Anomalies in stone. These mysterious discs soon became known as the Dropa Stones, named after an alleged extraterrestrial race mentioned in the carvings. According to controversial translations, most notably those attributed to a Chinese professor named Samam Nui in the 1960s, the discs chronicled the story of a group of beings who had crash-landed on Earth nearly 12,000 years ago. These beings, known as the Dropa, were described as frail and short in stature, with unusually large heads and spindly limbs. Stranded, they sought refuge in the highland caves of the region and eventually died there, never returning home. The message carved into the stones, if it was indeed a message, was both poetic and tragic. The Dropa came down from the clouds in their aircraft. Our men, women, and children hid in the caves 10 times before sunrise. When we finally understood their signs, we realized they had peaceful intentions. These words, though translated decades after the discovery, have remained etched in the minds of fringe researchers and alternative historians ever since. But here's where the mystery deepens. Sumam Nui's work, which was reportedly presented at the Beijing Academy of Sciences, was ridiculed and later suppressed. His name does not appear in any academic records from the time. No photographs of him have ever surfaced. No institution officially claims his research. In fact, some argue he never existed at all. Yet the Dropa Stones themselves? They were real, or at least they once were, the disappearing artifacts. For decades, rumors of the stones circulated through underground channels of archaeological discourse. Some reports claim they were stored at the Bampo Museum in Xi'an, though no verified records remain. Others insist that a handful of the discs were smuggled into private collections in Europe, their whereabouts now lost. Even more intriguingly, in the 1970s, a team of Austrian engineers allegedly tested one of the discs and claimed it emitted an unexplained electrical frequency, suggesting the stones weren't merely carved, but perhaps encoded in some primitive form of data storage. Could these ancient discs have once contained knowledge far beyond their time? Were they simple ceremonial objects, or something more akin to a record of extraterrestrial contact? To this day, no official explanation exists. The Chinese government has remained notably silent on the subject, and the original caves, if they still exist, have not been reopened for public or scholarly exploration. A forbidden history? Skeptics, of course, offer more mundane theories. Some claim the Dropa Stones were an elaborate hoax, designed in the 20th century to feed the growing interest in ancient astronauts and interstellar myths. Others argue the discs were misidentified burial objects, or even naturally formed stones misinterpreted by overzealous researchers. But the location of the discovery, the remote Bayan Har Mountains, is noteworthy. This is not a place tourists visit. It's a land of harsh weather, high altitudes, and spiritual silence. The indigenous peoples of the region have long told tales of sky people and glowing discs in the heavens. Some believe their ancestors came from the stars, and their oral traditions echo eerie parallels with the supposed messages inscribed on the Dropa Stones. Even today, local elders speak in hushed tones about the ones who came down during the thunder and the bright travelers who walked without sound. It would be easy to dismiss such stories were they not so widespread across multiple unrelated mountain tribes. Could it be that the Dropa Stones are only one piece of a much larger, hidden puzzle, lost in time or hidden on purpose? In 1994, a German scientist named Hartwig Hausdorff rekindled interest in the Dropa enigma when he published a book titled The White Pyramid. He not only discussed the Dropa Stones, but also linked them to ancient Chinese pyramids and forbidden tombs sealed for millennia. Hausdorff was denied access to certain archaeological sites by the Chinese authorities, raising suspicions that there were indeed secrets too sensitive to share with the world. And as more researchers began to connect the dots between the Dropa, the sealed tomb of Emperor Qin, and the Pyramids of Xi'an, a pattern emerged. There were elements of ancient Chinese history that appeared deliberately off-limits, censored, controlled, and possibly buried forever. Why? Could it be that the Dropa Stones, if authentic, contain more than just a story of ancient visitors? Could they hint at a timeline of humanity far older or more complex than we've been taught? Science or silence? To date, no mainstream institution has stepped forward with concrete evidence to confirm or debunk the Dropa Stones. The story exists in a shadow realm of speculative archaeology, hovering between myth and memory. Yet the interest continues to grow. Online communities across the globe share old black and white photos of the discs, compare transcriptions of the supposed texts, and debate endlessly over their meaning. Why do the discs resemble modern digital storage media? Why do they align with stories of early extraterrestrial contact? Why has the region where they were found remained so under-researched? These are questions with no answers, only whispers. In the quiet highlands of western China, beneath layers of rock and centuries of secrecy, something was discovered that didn't fit the accepted narrative. Whether you believe the Dropa Stones are authentic messages from the stars or simply misunderstood artifacts, one thing remains certain. Their story, true or not, reminds us how much we still don't know about our own history. Next, the forbidden tomb of Emperor Qin. Beneath a silent hill in the Chinese province of Shaanxi lies a tomb no one dares to open. Not because we cannot, but because we fear what we might find. It is the final resting place of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. a man whose ambitions stretched beyond conquest, beyond unification, and, as some believe, beyond death itself. His tomb is more than a monument, it is a question that has never been answered. And at the heart of this ancient mystery lies one of the most chilling legends in all of archaeology. A subterranean palace filled with flowing rivers of mercury, suspended traps, and secrets protected by design. Not just from grave robbers, but from time, technology, and truth. The man who became immortal. In 221 BCE, Qin Shi Huang unified China for the first time in its long and fractured history. He established a centralized imperial rule, standardized currency, weights and measures, even script, laying the foundation of what we now call China. But as his empire grew, so did his obsession: immortality. Historical records describe him sending envoys across the seas in search of the elixir of life. He drank potions prepared by alchemists, ironically, many of which contained mercury, the very element now associated with his death. And when he realized the body might not live forever, he began constructing a tomb that could. Not just any tomb, a city underground, the mount that hides everything. The site of his mausoleum lies beneath Mount Li, a naturally elevated hill just outside modern-day Xi'an. From the surface, it appears almost ordinary, lush and green, with only the knowledge of what lies beneath giving it weight. The mound covers a 98-foot-tall earthen pyramid, under which archaeologists believe sits a sprawling underground palace. Chinese historical texts, specifically the records of the Grand Historian, Shiji, written by Sima Qian nearly a century after the emperor's death, provide chillingly detailed descriptions of the interior. They speak of palaces and towers, a ceiling painted with constellations, and a floor designed to replicate the geography of China. Rivers and seas were reproduced using mercury, flowing through intricate channels, moved by mechanical means. But most unsettling of all, crossbows and mechanical traps were set to shoot intruders. Sima Qian, Shiji, 1st century BCE. This isn't just poetic exaggeration. Modern scientific surveys conducted around the tomb in the 1980s and again in the 2000s revealed abnormally high levels of mercury in the surrounding soil, especially over the supposed burial chamber. Secret science still can't touch. Despite the passage of over 2,000 years, the central tomb chamber remains unopened. Chinese authorities have made the decision, publicly and repeatedly, not to excavate. Why? The official stance is one of preservation. Current excavation techniques, they argue, may damage or destroy what lies inside. And there is precedent for this. Many relics, once exposed to the air, decay rapidly. In 2004, for example, when terracotta warriors near the tomb were first unearthed, their original paint disintegrated in just minutes after exposure to sunlight and oxygen. But for many, the refusal to excavate raises deeper questions. Some suspect that the tomb's secrets are not just historical, but perhaps technological. Could it be that Emperor Qin, in his quest for immortality, commissioned devices far beyond what we assume the ancient world could build? The Terracotta Guardians. In 1974, local farmers digging a well discovered a head. Not a human one, but a life-size clay figure. That accidental find led to the uncovering of the now world-famous Terracotta Army. Over 8,000 soldiers, each with unique facial features, weapons, hairstyles, and armor. Horses, chariots, archers, and officials, all arranged in perfect military formation. These statues were built to guard the emperor in the afterlife. But what makes them truly remarkable is not just their scale. It's their detail. Each soldier is individual. No two are the same. Some even appear to bear the influence of foreign features, leading fringe historians to suggest that the empire had contact with distant civilizations, or something even more unusual. Advanced metallurgy, lacquer coating techniques, and early evidence of chromium-based anti-rust coating, centuries before it was discovered in the West, suggest that the builders of Qin's tomb were no ordinary laborers. They may have been scientists, engineers, or something else entirely. Mercury. Madness or method? Let's return to the rivers of mercury. Why would ancient engineers pour such a deadly substance into the tomb? Was it symbolic? Mercury has long been associated with immortality in alchemical traditions. It was believed to purify, to preserve. Or was it a defensive measure? Some researchers have speculated that mercury's toxicity was intended to ward off intruders, not just in spirit, but in body. Others suggest that the flowing mercury may have been functional, perhaps part of a rudimentary but sophisticated hydraulic or energy-based system now lost to time. An even bolder theory, that Qin Shi Huang's tomb may house an ancient power source. Could the emperor have commissioned a system designed to last forever, to keep the tomb alive? If so, the mercury might not simply be a relic, it could still be active. The forbidden technology theory. This is where the mystery takes a darker turn. Some fringe researchers argue that the real reason the tomb has not been opened is not preservation, but fear. Fear of what might be inside. There are whispers that Chinese scientists have already detected radiation anomalies within the mound, that unusual readings of magnetism and electrical fields have been recorded, that drones sent into nearby satellite chambers malfunction without explanation. Of course, none of this is confirmed, and it may never be, but the silence surrounding the tomb is loud. Symbolism or something more. Many ancient cultures built elaborate burial sites for their rulers, but few went to this extreme. The layout of Qin's tomb, as described in historical texts, resembles more than just a royal resting place. It mirrors a cosmic model, an underground representation of the emperor's dominion both on earth and in the heavens. With constellations on the ceiling, rivers of mercury mimicking real-world geography, and a body protected by traps and magic, it's as if the tomb itself was intended to transcend death, to become a machine of eternal rule, a place where the first emperor could govern from beyond the grave. Why it remains unopened? Archaeologists and engineers today have the tools to open the tomb, but the Chinese government refuses. Their official position is clear. We have one Qin Shi Huang mausoleum. We cannot afford to make a mistake. But critics point out, why no further surveys? Why no new published findings? Why no international collaborations? Could the answers be too shocking, too dangerous, or perhaps too redefining? Some say the emperor's tomb is a time capsule, holding truths that would alter everything we know about ancient history. Others say it's simply a cultural treasure, better left untouched. But one thing is certain, whatever sleeps beneath Mount Li has done so for over 2,000 years. And it is no accident. It was built to endure, built to stay hidden, built to protect something. Next, the mysterious Sanxingui civilization, a culture with alien-like artifacts. There is a place in China's Sichuan province, surrounded by rolling hills and veiled in mist, where time seems to have folded in on itself, where the silence of the earth speaks louder than centuries of human explanation. Buried beneath layers of soil and forgotten by history for millennia, it wasn't a kingdom or a battlefield that slumbered undisturbed here, but an entire culture. One that created golden masks with elongated faces, massive bronze statues with alien-like features, and jade relics that seem to whisper of a knowledge far older and stranger than we know. This is the story of Sanxingui, an ancient civilization so advanced, so inexplicably different from everything we know about early Chinese history, that some scholars are still unsure how to classify it. Discovered by accident, almost dismissed at first, and then revealed in fragments too strange to ignore. The Sanxingui ruins continue to baffle scientists, historians, and archaeologists to this day. Was this the remnant of a forgotten civilization? A lost branch of an empire erased from time? Or, as some speculate, a culture guided by something not entirely of this world? Let us now descend gently into this mystery. Slow your thoughts. Allow your imagination to drift like the early morning fog over the ruins. Inhale the silence, and begin the journey to a place untouched by modern understanding, where bronze giants sleep in the dark and the past refuses to explain itself. An accidental discovery in a quiet field. The mystery of Sanxingui begins not in a grand temple or beneath some royal tomb, but in a humble field. It was the spring of 1929, and a farmer digging a ditch near the small town of Guanghan struck something hard. What he unearthed wasn't rock or metal. It was jade. Polished, carved jade, far more refined than anything he had ever seen. No one at the time knew what to make of it. The artifacts seemed ancient, yet unlike anything from known Chinese dynasties. And so the discovery faded into obscurity. That is, until half a century later. In 1986, during construction work at a brick factory in the same area, two enormous sacrificial pits were uncovered. What archaeologists found inside would ignite one of the greatest archaeological puzzles of the modern age. From the earth emerged broken statues, hundreds of bronze and gold masks with haunting expressions, intricately cast trees over 4 meters tall, and animal-faced vessels that defied classification. The relics were powerful, precise, and almost unrecognizable when compared to the aesthetic traditions of ancient China. There were no dragons or phoenixes, no script, no recognizable deities, just a language of form and symbolism all its own. Sangsingdui had awoken, a civilization that shouldn't exist. What makes Sangsingdui such a mystery is not simply the beauty or age of its artifacts. It's the disconnect. The civilization that created these wonders left no written records, no clear lineage, no obvious connection to the Zhou, Shang, or Han dynasties. The style is completely divergent from anything found in Chinese history at the time. Some artifacts are estimated to be over 3,000 years old, dating back to around 1200 BCE, which places them squarely in the Late Bronze Age. But their craftsmanship suggests a cultural sophistication that challenges what we thought we knew about early human development in East Asia. For instance, the bronze casting techniques found in Sangsingdui are more advanced than anything contemporaneously seen in the Shang dynasty, which is usually credited as one of China's earliest sophisticated cultures. Sangsingdui artisans mastered the use of clay molds, alloy blending, and geometric proportion with such precision that even modern metallurgists were astonished. Then there are the artifacts themselves, the alien-like faces. One of the most iconic and unsettling features of Sangsingdui are its bronze masks and statues. Many of them feature wide, almond-shaped eyes that slant upwards and outwards, often extending from the face in an exaggerated, almost insect-like way. The ears are large and leaf-like. The noses are sharp. The mouths are small or pursed. Some of the faces are gilded in gold, and others show traces of dark pigment. The overall impression is almost extraterrestrial. In fact, when photos of these artifacts began circulating in the 1990s and early 2000s, many casual observers began speculating. Were these ancient depictions of alien beings? Could a non-human influence have visited the region and inspired these strange forms? Of course, most scholars reject this notion, offering instead that the faces may represent spiritual figures or shamanic leaders, exaggerated to convey divine power or wisdom. But even this explanation feels incomplete. The masks do not resemble the people of the region, nor do they resemble any of the ancestral or animal deities common in Chinese mythologies. They are other, and no one knows why. The sacred trees of bronze. Equally perplexing are the bronze trees found at the site. One of them, now reconstructed and standing over 13 feet tall, is adorned with curling branches, dragon-like creatures, and mysterious flowers. Scholars believe it may represent a cosmic tree, a mythical axis connecting heaven and earth. But again, the symbolism is unique. It shares only the faintest similarity to mythological trees in other cultures. This construction was painstakingly complex. Each segment was cast separately, decorated in detail, and then assembled, a feat of engineering that would have required not just knowledge but precise planning and labor organization. But for what purpose? No one knows. Some believe these trees played a central role in Sangsingdui's religion, perhaps as conduits for divine communication. Others suggest they were ceremonial altars. A few theorize they may even represent an ancient calendar system, though no markings or numbers support this. Their presence, like everything else in Sangsingdui, raises more questions than it answers. What happened to them? Perhaps the greatest mystery of all. Why did such an advanced culture vanish? There is no evidence of conquest, no signs of war or collapse. The pits containing the artifacts appear to have been ritualistically buried. Many of the relics were intentionally smashed or burned before being sealed beneath the earth. It's almost as if the civilization deliberately erased itself. Some experts theorize a massive earthquake or river shift may have caused ecological disaster, forcing the people to abandon their city. Others propose a political or religious upheaval, with leaders burying the symbols of the old world before transitioning to a new order. But still, nothing definitive. No nearby ruins show continuation. No oral histories have emerged to describe them. Sangsingdui seems to have risen from nowhere and vanished just as mysteriously. The civilization reemerges only faintly in another site called Jinsha, some 30 miles away, but even there, the continuity is unclear. It's as if a dream moved from one place to another, shifting shape and leaving only fragments behind. Theories: ancient visitors, lost tribes, or hidden histories. It's no surprise that Sanxingdui has attracted fringe theories. Some believe the elongated eyes and alien faces suggest contact with extraterrestrial beings, or at the very least, an influence from a lost global culture like Atlantis or Lemuria. Others suggest that Sanxingdui was a migration outpost of a more ancient people, perhaps remnants of Mesopotamian or Indo-European civilizations, lost to time. The sheer uniqueness of the art style, they argue, hints at cross-cultural blending that has yet to be recognized. More grounded historians simply propose that Sanxingdui was one of many complex societies thriving in ancient China, but that history, always written by victors or survivors, simply overlooked it. After all, without writing or preserved oral traditions, how many entire civilizations may have already slipped through the cracks? Modern excavations and renewed interest. In 2021, a new round of excavations at Sanxingdui began, employing cutting-edge technology, including 3D scanning, satellite imaging, and DNA analysis. These digs uncovered 6 new sacrificial pits and more than 10,000 new artifacts, including silk remnants, ivory carvings, and even more haunting masks. Scientists hope that this new wave of discoveries will finally offer insight into Sanxingdui's language, beliefs, and connections to other cultures. But so far, the mystery only deepens. No writing has been found, no royal names, no lineage charts, only more symbols, more beauty, more echoes of something brilliant and inexplicably gone. A civilization between worlds. In the end, the Sanxingdui civilization exists like a shadow caught between dimensions. Not quite forgotten, but not quite understood. Not just ancient, but alien in its aesthetics. It seems to have whispered its wisdom through bronze, gold, and jade, and then disappeared before anyone could ask, why? And now, as you lie back, listening to the quiet rhythm of this mystery, you may wonder, how many other Sanxingduis are still buried beneath our feet? How many cultures flickered into being, shared their strange light, and vanished without a trace? Sanxingdui reminds us that the past is not a straight line, but a maze of mirrors. And sometimes, when the light catches just right, we see not what was, but what might have been. Close your eyes. Let the glow of bronze statues and gold leaf masks fade slowly into the distance. The mystery is not meant to be solved tonight, only remembered. Part 5. The Dropa Stones, evidence of an ancient alien crash or a forgotten civilization. High in the silent, mist-shrouded recesses of the Bayan Har Mountains in eastern Tibet, whispers of a long-lost mystery still echo through the snow-covered passes. These highlands, far from the footprints of tourists and modern infrastructure, are steeped in an eerie quietude, as if the earth itself is holding its breath, guarding something that time forgot. Then silence. For years, no official mention was made. The discs were stored, it seems, in a museum basement, untouched and largely forgotten. But the legend of the Dropa Stones refused to die. The enigma of translation. It wasn't until 2 decades later, in the early 1960s, that the Dropa Stones allegedly found new life in the hands of another scholar, Dr. Tsumam Nui, a linguist affiliated with the Beijing Academy of Ancient Studies. According to fringe researchers and paranormal chroniclers, Dr. Tsum painstakingly examined the grooves on several of the discs under a high-powered microscope. What he found, they claim, left him speechless. The grooves were not random. They were not scratches. They were microscopic hieroglyph-like characters, spiraling inwards in a narrative sequence. After months of analysis, Tsum announced his conclusion. These discs tell the story of beings who crashed on Earth 12,000 years ago. The translation, if true, was stunning. The glyphs described how the Dropa people, extraterrestrial travelers from a distant star system, crash-landed in the remote mountains of China millennia ago. Unable to repair their ship, they took refuge in the caves, seeking shelter and eventually dying on Earth's surface. According to the narrative, the local inhabitants, the ancestors of the modern-day Ham tribespeople, were frightened by the visitors' strange appearance and technology. Yet over time, the two peoples began to communicate. The Dropa taught their hosts some form of knowledge, possibly technological or spiritual. But eventually, the Dropa began to die out. Their remains were buried with care, along with the discs that would preserve their story. So the story goes. But almost immediately, Dr. Tsum was allegedly ridiculed and silenced. Official Chinese authorities never confirmed his existence, and his papers were said to have been rejected for disrupting established historical narratives. Did he ever exist? Were his findings real? Or was this story itself a fabrication born from misinterpretation or outright invention? The bizarre artifacts re-emerge. In 1974, the mystery resurfaced. Russian scientist W. Setso of the Academy of Sciences in Moscow claimed to have obtained several Dropa stones from China and performed further tests. He reported unusual acoustic properties, claiming that the stones emitted an odd vibration when placed on a specialized turntable. According to Setso's paper in the Soviet journal Sputnik, the discs contained unusually high concentrations of cobalt and other metallic elements. They were also said to emit electromagnetic pulses. Were these artifacts remnants of advanced technology, or merely stones with natural metallic content misinterpreted by imaginative minds? Despite the sensational claims, once again the trail grew cold. The stones disappeared from public view. Today, no mainstream museum admits to possessing one. Scholars who have tried to track the story have found themselves hitting wall after wall. And yet, tantalizing clues persist. Who were the Dropa? There are people today in the mountainous borderlands between China and Tibet who call themselves Dropa or Dzopa. Their ancestry is murky. They are ethnically distinct from both the Tibetan and Han Chinese populations. Descriptions from early 20th century explorers depict them as short in stature, with large, oddly shaped skulls, peaceful and technologically rudimentary. Could they be the descendants of some ancient migratory culture? Perhaps the remnants of a long-forgotten tribe who carried oral tales of a celestial origin? Or is the very name Dropa being retrofitted into a story that never truly existed in the first place? The skeptic's view. Mainstream scholars dismiss the Dropa stones as a hoax or modern myth. They point out that Dr. Tsum Nui cannot be independently verified as a real person. No academic publications exist under his name in any known Chinese or international journals. The original location of the caves has never been identified, nor verified by independent archaeology. No physical Dropa stones have ever been catalogued or peer-reviewed. Critics believe the entire story may have emerged from a blend of Cold War sensationalism, mistranslation, and the fertile imaginations of fringe journalists. But for believers, these arguments do little to diminish the allure. Lingering questions. If the Dropa stones are fake, why do variations of the legend continue to surface from multiple sources, across decades, and often before the internet age could have easily spread them? If the Bayan Har Mountains never held such caves, why do local oral traditions hint at strange visitors and celestial events? If the discs were hoaxes, why were they made to such precise standards? And why do accounts repeatedly mention their ability to vibrate or emit pulses? And if the entire story is fabricated, why does it still feel, in the quiet corners of our minds, like a memory we're trying to recall, rather than a tale we've just heard? The mystery remains. To this day, the Dropa stones remain lost to public knowledge. If they ever existed, they are either locked away in some forgotten drawer in Beijing, or quietly reburied beneath centuries of snow and rock. Perhaps they were real, and time has simply buried them once more. Or perhaps the Dropa story is less about aliens and more about our own yearning for answers. Our instinct to look to the stars when the ground beneath our feet no longer tells us what we want to hear. Next, the enigma of the floating stones of Mount Tai, defying gravity in the sacred mountains. There is a place in China where the wind feels older than time itself. A place where myth and mountain become indistinguishable and reality softens at the edges. That place is Mount Tai, one of the 5 great mountains of China, revered for thousands of years and regarded by emperors and sages as the very axis between heaven and earth. Mount Tai has been a sacred site since Neolithic times. It is a mountain of prayer, of vision quests, of cosmic alignment. But amidst the forests, temples, and mist-shrouded cliffs lies a puzzle that no one has been able to explain: the floating stones. These stones are scattered along narrow paths, perched on ridges, or jutting from vertical cliffs. They are massive boulders, some as large as trucks, resting on tiny contact points, sometimes seemingly balanced on nothing but the edge of a finger of stone. Locals call them cloud-touching rocks, while some monks whisper that they are gifts left by the immortals. Many visitors report the same eerie sensation upon encountering these stones. An intuitive unease, as if nature itself is holding its breath. The stones do not move, not even during earthquakes. They remain impossibly balanced, frozen in mid-motion, denying both gravity and explanation. Geologists have attempted to understand them. They speak of erosion, tectonic uplift, glacial deposits. But these explanations fall short in face of the sheer improbability of their positions. How did these enormous stones land in such precise, precarious ways and stay that way for thousands of years? Why do some appear to hover inches above the rock surface, casting faint shadows underneath? Some suggest they were placed intentionally, that ancient peoples, perhaps those who built the early temples of Mount Tai, moved the stones there as part of some forgotten ritual. But this raises even deeper questions. How could they have moved such massive stones without modern machinery? And why balance them so unnaturally, so deliberately? There's a particular formation near the summit known as the sky-gazing stone, a long granite monolith that appears to lean outward from a cliff, poised as if preparing to fall into the clouds below. It should not stand. By every calculation, it should have already tumbled down the mountain centuries ago. But it hasn't. Legend says that a celestial being placed it there, a test of humanity's humility. As long as people treat the mountain with reverence, the stone will stay. But if arrogance rises, the stone will fall, bringing misfortune upon the land. Stranger still are the reports of magnetic anomalies around certain stones. Compasses spin, watches stop. Some visitors claim their phones glitch or their recordings distort near the rocks. Could it be some unknown property of the minerals within the boulders? Or is something more elusive at work? In 2003, a small team of physicists from Beijing set up an observational station near one of the more prominent floating stones. They hoped to study its balance, its magnetism, and its structural support. But after just 2 days, the experiment was mysteriously abandoned. Equipment reportedly malfunctioned. Team members reported unsettling phenomena. Whispers at night, feelings of being watched, shadows moving independently of light. Nothing further was published. To this day, visitors climb Mount Tai not just for its spiritual significance, but to witness the impossible, to stand before a stone that should not remain standing. Some kneel before it, some meditate, and others simply gaze in silence, trying to make sense of something ancient, beautiful, and deeply strange. As clouds swirl and the air thins, one cannot help but feel that these rocks are more than geological oddities. They are symbols, warnings perhaps, or relics of a science and spirituality we have long since forgotten. In the mystery of Mount Tai's floating stones, we are offered no answers, only the silent question. What if the world is still stranger than we believe? Next, the undeciphered secrets of the bamboo annals, or a history that rewrites time. In a quiet corner of Chinese antiquity, buried beneath centuries of shifting dynasties and weathered scrolls, lies a mystery that has confounded scholars, skeptics, and seekers of truth alike. It is not a lost city, nor a mythical creature, but something far more powerful, a rewritten history. It begins with an ancient book known as the Bamboo Annals, or in Chinese, Zhushu Jinyan, Zhusu Jinan. Unlike the well-known classics of Confucian tradition, this text was not preserved in silk or carved into stone. It was etched onto slender, elegant strips of bamboo, then bound together and hidden deep underground. What the Bamboo Annals claim to tell is nothing less than an alternate history of China. The story of the Bamboo Annals begins in the ancient state of Wei, in the 4th century BCE. After the fall of a capital city during political upheaval, a tomb was uncovered, believed to be that of a high-ranking noble or perhaps even a royal archivist. Inside were artifacts, relics, and bundles of carefully arranged bamboo slips, covered in tiny script. These slips, when finally examined and transcribed centuries later, revealed a timeline of rulers, events, and cosmic signs that didn't match official dynastic records. Some parts supported what historians already believed, but others, they were deeply unsettling. For instance, the Bamboo Annals recorded kings who ruled for hundreds of years, cataclysmic floods that reshaped the earth, eclipses and celestial portents marking the rise and fall of empires, even encounters with beings from the heavens. The tone of the annals was not mythological. It didn't read like a collection of folktales. It read like history, chronological, deliberate, organized. And that's what disturbed many scholars the most. If it were fiction, it would be easier to dismiss. But if it was real, some researchers noted that the Bamboo Annals referenced rulers and events not found in other texts, including certain Xia dynasty figures thought to be purely legendary. It extended the known timeline of China's civilization by centuries, perhaps even millennia. Then there were the strangest parts. Mentions of sky chariots that hovered over the Yellow River. Descriptions of tools that could bend iron without heat. Of mirrors that showed not the face, but the soul. And curious allusions to visitors who came from the stars, wearing robes of flame and speaking without mouths. Were these merely symbolic metaphors, or encrypted memories of technologies lost to time? The Bamboo Annals also contradicted other canonical texts on major events, such as the rise of the Shang dynasty and the fall of the legendary Xia. It introduced alternate lineages and even questioned the dates of major floods and celestial alignments that Chinese historians had used as fixed points for centuries. By the 18th and 19th centuries, many Confucian scholars had dismissed the annals as apocryphal or corrupted. Parts of it were even censored or rewritten in official publications. But the original bamboo strips, at least what was left of them, told a different story, and they refused to be forgotten. In modern times, digital reconstructions and linguistic analysis have been used to try to restore the full content of the Bamboo Annals. But here, a new layer of mystery emerges. Several key passages appear to be written in archaic or hybrid scripts that defy easy translation. And some strips, allegedly, were found missing, taken from archives or intentionally hidden. One famous scholar who worked on the annals in the 1980s claimed to have seen references to a war in the sky and a mirror that opened into another realm. He later retracted his findings without explanation and refused further interviews until his death. What could be so dangerous in the Bamboo Annals that certain elements remain obscured? There are also theories, controversial of course, that the annals were part of a larger tradition of suppressed knowledge. Some point to similar bamboo records from neighboring states and cultures now lost. Others believe the annals were one of the few surviving remnants of an older, pre-dynastic civilization that predates known Chinese history by thousands of years. Could this be China's version of a lost Atlantis? A civilization with access to celestial knowledge, advanced tools, and the foresight to bury their history beneath layers of earth and politics? What makes the Bamboo Annals truly fascinating is not just their content, but the fact that they are still not fully understood. Every few years, a new fragment is found, a new reinterpretation emerges, and with each new word, the past becomes less certain. In the end, what the Bamboo Annals leave us with is not clarity, but a deep, resonant question. What if our understanding of history is not incorrect but incomplete? And if so, what else might be buried, waiting to be read? Next, the ghost city of Fengdu, a portal to the afterlife? In the mist-shrouded mountains of Chongqing, overlooking the still waters of the Yangtze River, lies a city unlike any other. It is not bustling with life, nor echoing with the sounds of the modern world. Instead, its stone gates and stairways remain eerily silent, guarded by statues of demons, judged by ancient spirits, and cloaked in the lore of the dead. This is Fengdu, often called the ghost city of China. According to legend, this is where the dead stop on their journey to the afterlife, where souls are judged, punished, or rewarded, and where, for over 2,000 years, visitors have come not to pray for life, but to understand death. But is Fengdu merely symbolic folklore, or something far older and stranger than anyone dares to say? A city carved for spirits. The origins of Fengdu date back to the Eastern Han Dynasty, around 2,000 years ago. The legend says that two imperial officials, Yin Chongsheng and Wang Fangping, came to the mountain to practice Taoist alchemy and meditation. Over time, they achieved immortality and merged into a single deity, Yin Wang, the king of hell. The name Fengdu itself became synonymous with the realm of spirits, where judgment is passed and karmic retribution is measured. What began as a small religious retreat evolved into a full-scale city, one that wasn't built for the living, but for the dead. Walking through Fengdu, visitors are greeted by haunting imagery. Statues of tortured souls, bridges representing moral tests, and gates watched over by monstrous guardians. The infamous Bridge of Helplessness, for example, is said to test the virtue of souls. The Tianzi Palace, resting at the peak, is where the final judgment is passed. And yet, the architecture is strangely uniform. The layout is mathematical, almost astronomical. Some of the oldest structures appear carved directly into the mountain with techniques that modern archaeologists still puzzle over. Could Fengdu have been built atop something even more ancient? A sacred site long forgotten before Taoism claimed it? The river that divides worlds. Fengdu's location isn't random. It sits along a particularly foggy, almost dreamlike stretch of the Yangtze River. Local lore calls this part of the river the gate of the underworld. Boats passing through here often report sudden mechanical malfunctions, strange sounds from beneath the waves, and a feeling of overwhelming unease. Divers who have explored near the mountain's base claim that unusual stone formations lie beneath the water, some resembling submerged structures or monoliths. Geologists note that the rock beneath Fengdu is riddled with caves, many of which remain unexplored. Echoes within them can last for minutes. Some locals say you can hear whispers in these caves when the wind is right. But whispers of what? A city that refuses to die. In the early 2000s, the creation of the Three Gorges Dam flooded much of the original Fengdu city. Temples, statues, and walkways were submerged, their tops barely visible beneath the surface. But curiously, the top of Ming Mountain, where the most sacred structure stood, remained just above the water, as if untouched, preserved intentionally. Tourists still visit the new city built on higher ground, but the original ghost city beneath the river is off-limits. Drones sent down to record underwater footage have returned with garbled data. And on more than one occasion, underwater cameras simply stopped functioning when nearing submerged statues. Is it just coincidence? Or something else entirely? Some believe the flooding of Fengdu was symbolic, unintentionally echoing ancient myths about water washing away impurity. But others believe it was more literal, that something was meant to be hidden beneath the waves. Spiritual portal? Or something stranger? For many, Fengdu is simply a metaphor, a city built to remind people of morality, karma, and the cycle of death and rebirth. But for some esoteric Taoist sects and underground researchers, Fengdu is believed to be more than metaphor. Some believe that Ming Mountain is one of China's earth energy nodes, an ancient point of connection between spiritual realms, a kind of portal, if you will. Stranger still, some early texts refer to Fengdu as a watch point for celestial travelers, a term that scholars have long debated. Was this poetic language or literal observation? And in a few surviving Taoist scrolls, found tucked away in private collections, there are even stranger claims that Fengdu was not built for spirits but by them. What could that mean? Could it be that Fengdu represents a knowledge now lost, a technology or belief system that once allowed people to communicate with something beyond life? Something that modern science still refuses to consider? A final mystery to ponder. As the mist rolls across the hills of Chongqing and the river flows endlessly below, Fengdu remains, a city between worlds, part history, part myth, entirely enigmatic. Perhaps it is nothing more than a beautiful cultural relic, steeped in symbolic meaning. Or perhaps it is the last surviving remnant of a time when the boundaries between life and death were thinner, when mountains held secrets, and when stone spoke softly of the unseen. Whether you believe in ghosts, ancient wisdom, or the possibility of other realms, the ghost city of Fengdu asks one final question. What if death is not the end, but merely a doorway, built in stone, and waiting in silence? Next, the 1,000 Buddha grottos of Dunhuang secrets carved into the cliffside. Far in the desert reaches of northwestern China, where the wind dances across dunes and the silence of the Taklamakan whispers ancient truths, lies a site so enigmatic, so transcendent, that even time itself seems to pause in its presence. The 1,000 Buddha grottos of Dunhuang, also known as the Mogeo Caves, are no ordinary relic. They are a series of hand-carved temples and chambers hidden within a cliff face, containing nearly 500 caves, more than 45,000 square meters of murals, and over 2,000 painted sculptures. But beneath their spiritual and artistic grandeur lies a far deeper mystery, one that science and history alike continue to struggle to fully comprehend. Yet even in its early phases, the construction of the caves defies explanation. The precision of the carving, the alignment of chambers with celestial phenomena, and the sheer scale of effort required to maintain them in such a hostile climate baffle modern experts. It's as if the builders had not only spiritual fervor, but knowledge passed down from a forgotten era or another world. The murals themselves are unlike anything found elsewhere in Buddhist art. Amidst familiar depictions of the Buddha, bodhisattvas, and celestial beings, we find strange humanoid figures with elongated heads, radiant halos, and star maps painted centuries before China adopted astronomical observation. What were the monks trying to show us? The library cave, a time capsule sealed in mystery. One of the most confounding aspects of the Dunhuang complex is Cave 17, known as the Library Cave. Sealed for nearly a millennium and rediscovered only in 1900, it contained over 50,000 manuscripts, scrolls, paintings, and textiles. A vast archive dating back to the 5th century. But here's the mystery. Why was it sealed? And more curiously, why were some of the texts written in lost or unknown scripts, including languages that resemble no known Chinese dialect? Some scrolls depict cosmologies alien to any religion of the time. Others include maps of lands that shouldn't have existed in the knowledge of that era. Among these texts is the famous Diamond Sutra, the world's oldest printed book. But tucked beside it are scrolls hinting at rituals, star alignments, and metaphysical gateways. One scroll even depicts a ritual involving chanting to awaken guardians beyond the sky. Were these merely metaphors? Or could the Dunhuang monks have been preserving ancient knowledge, handed down through ages from a forgotten civilization? Whispers of the celestial. Scholars have noted a strange astronomical accuracy in many of the murals. Some chambers align with the solstices. Others depict star constellations visible only from different latitudes. Certain ceiling paintings seem to show comets, eclipses, and even phenomena resembling aurora borealis. Even more curious, some of the depictions bear resemblance to star charts only discovered in the West centuries later. Could these be artistic coincidence? Or is it possible that the artists and monks were privy to knowledge, perhaps traded along the Silk Road, that we never knew existed in ancient Asia? In Cave 251, for instance, a mural shows a being with golden skin descending on a lotus through a spiral of stars. Around him are figures bowing, offering gifts, and what appear to be celestial diagrams. Modern interpretations have ranged from divine manifestation to alien encounter. Symbols outside time. Apart from religious iconography, the murals also contain symbols that don't match any known script. Some of these appear in the margins of scrolls in the library cave as well. Geometric shapes, spirals, interlocking glyphs. In 2008, a team of researchers from Beijing Normal University digitized thousands of these symbols. To their surprise, a small percentage seemed to resemble mathematical formulas or binary code patterns. The implications were staggering, though the scientific community remains skeptical. Still, one has to wonder, could these be fragments of a language or system predating known Chinese writing? Or something entirely different? Perhaps an attempt to encode sacred knowledge in a form only the initiated could understand? A sacred silence. What may be most haunting about the 1,000 Buddha grottos isn't what they reveal, but what they refuse to. Despite all that has been uncovered, more than 200 of the caves remain off-limits or unexplored, some too fragile to enter, others too politically or spiritually sensitive. There are rumors among local guides of a cave deep in the complex that contains a mural unlike any other. A mural not of deities, but of the earth from space. Another supposedly shows the moon in unnatural detail, complete with what look like artificial structures. Of course, these tales remain unconfirmed, whispers carried on the desert wind. But in a place like Dunhuang, where so much mystery sleeps beneath layers of pigment and stone, one cannot help but feel that the greatest secrets are still waiting to be revealed, carved by human hands or guided by something greater. As we stand in the cool shadow of the 1,000 Buddha grottos, surrounded by the painted gazes of countless divine beings, we are left with more questions than answers. Who were the minds behind this masterpiece of devotion and complexity? What knowledge did they safeguard in scrolls and symbols no one can decode? And why do so many of their creations hint at realms beyond our own? This desert sanctuary remains, for now, a riddle in stone, a place where the spiritual and the scientific meet, but never quite shake hands. And so we move forward, not with certainty, but with wonder. Let the sands cover what they will, but the secrets of Dunhuang may yet rise again, when we are ready to understand. Last part, the ghost city of Fengdu, where the living fear to tread. Somewhere on the mist-veiled banks of the Yangtze River, nestled within the shadows of a mountain that seems to breathe with secrets, lies a city that was never meant for the living. This place is known as Fengdu, the Ghost City, a place where myth, religion, and spectral folklore meet stone and silence. For over 2,000 years, Fengdu has whispered of an afterlife where souls are judged, tormented, or granted peace. Its carved halls and towering statues do not celebrate emperors or gods of harvest, but rather the underworld, phantoms, and judges of death. But why was this city built? Who designed its chillingly detailed vision of hell? And why, even today, do locals speak of it in hushed tones? Tonight, let us walk through this haunted relic together, and perhaps glimpse a realm where the boundary between life and death was chiseled into reality. A city of the dead on the living earth. The ghost city of Fengdu is located in Chongqing Municipality, high on the northern bank of the Yangtze River. The moment one approaches, its architecture announces something strange. Towering demon statues loom at the entrance, bridges are named after sins, and everything is wrapped in iconography of judgment, punishment, and rebirth. What is remarkable is that Fengdu is not a cemetery or a burial site. It was never meant to house bodies. Instead, it's a symbolic city, a spiritual complex meant to mirror Diyu, the Chinese version of the underworld. This alone makes Fengdu a rare artifact, a three-dimensional representation of the Chinese conception of hell, built not as a warning, but as an invitation to contemplate what waits beyond. Roots in Taoism, Buddhism, and something older. Historically, Fengdu's origins trace back over 1,800 years, to the Eastern Han dynasty. But its deeper roots likely extend further, possibly back to ancient shamanic beliefs of early Chinese tribes who believed certain mountains were gateways to other realms. The site is rich with Taoist and Buddhist symbolism, but also contains carvings and elements that predate organized religion. Some mythologists believe the mountain on which Fengdu is built, Ming Mountain, was long considered sacred, a place where spirits could travel between worlds. A tale often repeated says two court officials, Yin Chongsheng and Wang Fangping, abandoned their posts and came to this mountain to practice Taoism and achieve immortality. When they died, their names, Yin and Wang, were combined to form Yin Wang, or King of the Underworld. Coincidence? Or was the legend seeded by something older still? The gates of hell are real here. One of Fengdu's most unnerving features is its replica of the 10 courts of hell, each governed by a terrifying judge, responsible for punishing specific sins. Visitors cross a narrow stone bridge, the Bridge of Helplessness, symbolizing the moment the soul parts from the body. If one does not walk correctly across the bridge, it is believed their soul may fall into torment. Then comes Ghost Torturing Pass, where massive stone demons leer down at you, teeth bared, swords raised. These are guardians of judgment, and their carved eyes seem to follow you. Finally, the path leads to Tianzi Palace, the centerpiece of Fengdu. Inside, colossal statues of the kings of hell await. In front of them is the Wheel of Reincarnation and the infamous Nothing to be Done Bridge, a test of karma and balance. How, we ask, could a culture have conjured such a detailed layout of the afterlife, unless they believed they had seen it? The spirit imprint, supernatural evidence? One of Fengdu's strangest elements is the spirit imprint, a large stone face on the cliffside of the mountain, seemingly natural, yet hauntingly human. Locals believe it is the face of a god or spirit who watches over the dead, guiding them into the netherworld. Geologists argue it's a natural erosion pattern, but visitors and researchers who have examined it up close often feel strange sensations. Pressure in the chest, chills, or the feeling of being watched. Some even report phantom whispers and unexplained camera malfunctions near the imprint. In a land where myth and geology blur, this face may be something more, or perhaps a geological coincidence charged by centuries of belief. Fengdu and the Yangtze, a river between worlds. Interestingly, the placement of Fengdu was no accident. In ancient Chinese cosmology, rivers were seen as borders between realms. The Yangtze River, powerful and unpredictable, was often considered a living threshold, the perfect divider between the world of the living and the lands of the dead. This symbolism strengthens the idea that Fengdu was meant to be more than an architectural marvel. It was designed to be an in-between, a liminal space where pilgrims could confront their mortality and perhaps even glimpse their future in the afterlife. But is there more to it than just belief? Why do so many report unexplained phenomena while exploring this city of spirits? Strange sightings and unanswered questions. Tourists and monks have both reported strange occurrences in Fengdu, from sudden drops in temperature to phantom footsteps, unseen hands brushing against skin, and in rare cases, the faint sound of weeping or laughter echoing through the empty halls. One local guide, who has worked at Fengdu for over 20 years, claims to have seen a pale figure walking across the bridge of helplessness long after the gates had closed for the night. When he called out, the figure disappeared mid-step. Security cameras have picked up glitches and distortions, often at the same spots, particularly near the Spirit Imprint and Tianzi Palace. While skeptics say it's just tech failure, believers suggest the very structure of Fengdu bends the fabric between dimensions. What lies beneath the subterranean level? Recent ground scans and archaeological interest have shown signs that Fengdu may extend deeper underground than originally thought. Some suspect a subterranean level or tunnel system lies beneath the ghost city, a spiritual catacomb perhaps, or even something older that the visible city was built upon. Due to preservation laws and the spiritual sensitivity of the site, excavations have been limited. But those who have studied ancient Taoist texts suggest the underground area may mirror the Yellow Springs, the Chinese concept of the soul's journey through a maze-like underworld. Could the builders of Fengdu have tried to replicate not just the afterlife's gates, but its hidden, winding passageways? And if so, what waits inside that no one dares disturb? Legacy and lingering mystery. In 2008, Fengdu was partially submerged due to the construction of the Three Gorges Dam, raising the Yangtze's water level. Much of the lower city is now underwater, a symbolic drowning of the underworld perhaps. Yet Ming Mountain, with its towering demonic statues and ghostly architecture, remains accessible by cable car, still whispering ancient truths to those who dare climb its haunted steps. Fengdu survives as a monument, a mystery, and perhaps a map to something more than we understand. Is it merely symbolic? Or was it built by those who believed they had witnessed the afterlife?